Welcome to the Speak and Get What You Want podcast, where you learn how to communicate like the world's greatest leaders. All right, welcome to the Speak and Get What You Want podcast. I'm Chad Kerby here with the great TK Stratton. And today we're going to talk about a couple of things that are really require discipline when you're communicating. You know, because we often think about what we're saying and we think about the words and how we're structuring it, but we forget about two main principles that we talk a lot about in the book, but really impact the outcome of your presentation or when you're speaking to anybody. And these two principles, they're the track, we call them the track and field principle and the energy principle. And the first one, TK, we're going to talk about the track and field principle first, because you were the one who introduced this principle to me. And the way it came about, and I'll give some context, TK, and then I want you to share with us how your thoughts, but track and field, okay, it's a great sport, but I don't often find myself at a track and field event unless one of my kids are participating in it. So you can imagine.
Yeah, none of my friends do.
So you can imagine my surprise, TK, when you came up to me and you're like, "Hey, let's go to a track and field event." And I was a little slow to respond because I was just shuffling through my Rolodex of excuses, TK, and I couldn't get one fast enough. But you were already prepared for me because you said none of your friends do.
No, I'm pretty used to getting told no. You know, like on that. No one likes track and field.
Okay, but wait, stop. Think about that for a moment. Those listening to the podcast that are business leaders in sales, entrepreneurship, we're all used to hearing no, right? But you're actually laughing about it, TK. Why?
Yeah, guys like you say no a lot, but you wouldn't say no until you go. I promise. Until you go to one of these meets, and that's I think what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so TK comes to me and he goes, "Yeah, you should come to this track meet. It's at Sun Angels. No, it's at Arizona Sun Devil Stadium, right? Their track and field there at Arizona State University."
Yeah, look, you already remember.
And he's like, "Look, this is something that you really want to be at." And I'm like, "No, I really do appreciate the invite, TK, but I don't think so." And then TK, you start going into detail. Now, by the way, I said no. And so many times in life, when people tell us no, we take it personal and we're like, "Oh my goodness." But you heard TK laugh. You heard him laugh when I said no. He's like, "Oh, you just don't get it." And so then TK, you start describing it for me. And share with me your description for a moment. You start describing, I think, the 200-meter dash.
Yeah, you know, going back, you know, to I guess the purpose of this principle. When you and I were talking before we, you know, went online with this podcast, we talked about the nonverbal communication. You know what? You and I have talked about this before too, but you know, how many people really understand the percentage of communication when you're communicating with someone that is actually nonverbal?
Oh,
You remember what that is?
yeah, it's like 90%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the studies are all over, but anywhere from 70 to 93% of our communication is nonverbal.
Right.
So it's something that we really got to think about with everything we say, and that goes to so many things like how you're standing, how you know, your tonality that we talk about, your energy that you just talked about the game that I'm sure you're going to mention, but you know, and that goes into all of our sales. Like when you talk about like the 200, yeah, that 200 is my favorite race. You know, I love track and field. When these guys are coming around the curve and coming off the curve, they're reaching peak speeds at just under 28 miles an hour. You know, it's unbelievable. You know, they look like machines, just gazelles darting across the track. And when you see this on TV, you're like, oh yeah, those are fast guys. It's totally different when you watch it in person and you can feel the ground rumbling as these guys that are strong as anything that you've ever seen in your life. They look like Terminator robots when they're coming by you. It is unbelievable to watch. And then you're watching things like the long jump. These guys are are long jumping further than a school bus. You know, they're jumping 29, 28, 29 feet long. You know, it's unbelievable. So that's why I love, until you can experience it in person. Everyone says, oh, no, I don't want to go to a boring track meet. Well, yeah, you've been to all of these middle school and high school track meets that take all day. Yeah, it's totally different when you're watching the fastest people in the world run. And that's why I love it. It's so cool to watch what people have become and what they can do and what the human body is capable of. And it, just kind of relates to all of us. Like, how can we be better? How can we do better? How can we be more? And that's just inspiring when you watch things like that.
Well, and TK, you used some of those very descriptive words when you were talking to me. This was probably 8 years ago where you were just like, okay, but when they're running and you feel the ground tremble, it is unlike anything you've ever seen before. And
Yeah.
I looked into your eyes and I was like, okay, he sees something that I need to see. And that's where we coined this phrase, the track and field principle, because when people get really excited about something, then it's very easy for them to get others excited about it. And
Yeah.
and so TK, when you and I had a training in Boise, a few years ago, when we were teaching this very principle, the track and field principle. And we're helping everyone. And we're like, okay, everyone understands this, right? And
Yeah.
so we wanted to make sure by having them, model it for us. So we called on who I believe was a group of financial advisors, and we called up this individual, and we said, okay, get everyone excited about the products you sell. And TK, remember what it's like? He was
Man,
like,
that guy was amazing. The most quiet guy in the entire room. We asked him to come up, and we're like, "Hey, what is your favorite thing to talk about?" And he was the biggest introvert of the whole room. I don't think he said two words in the whole class until he said, "Oh, I like LeBron James." And we're like, "Oh, okay. Sell us on why we should all go watch LeBron James." If you remember that, I think his name was Ben.
really?
Great guy, a really great guy. But we were there, and he gets up in front of the room. And he's like, does this amazing sales pitch on why everyone should watch LeBron James and why he is the greatest basketball player that's ever lived. And people even started throwing things out. Oh, like, oh yeah, he probably has a lot of kids out there that'll, from different moms and whatever, and and we were talking about objections and how to get around him. He's like, okay, we'll just step aside to that. And then, it just continued this amazing sales pitch. Maybe you want to go watch basketball and watch a game of LeBron James. He was really good. And I think that goes back to that energy. When it's something you're passionate about, you can bring that energy about. We saw it. You and I did. It was
Oh,
amazing.
well, and TK, right before it, he was talking about his products, and he was as boring as can be. And then you got him talking about LeBron James, and he lit up the room. And
Oh
people
man,
and
everyone
people
was
were saying
laughing. You remember that?
Michael Jordan's better, and he was like, and he had this level of passion and excitement. And you know what?
Absolutely.
It takes work, TK, to really work on that track and field principle. It requires work. It's not something that all of a sudden it becomes natural for you. We joke about it all the time, TK, that, we have a bunch of kids, both of us, and never once has the doctor handed us a kid and been like, well, it looks like you got a communicator here. This is a speaker, right? Never once does that happen, because you have to work at these things. And
Yeah.
so as you're thinking about leading a team, or you're thinking about leading your business or in sales, wherever it is that you're doing, you really need to think about the track and field principle. And are you excited about it? And if you are, you can get others excited about it, just like TK, the track and field principle. But the key to the track and field principle is this: you have to be excited about it first. And so you have to work to get excited about it first. And TK, yeah, I've seen that with you in all your different businesses. You get excited. I mean, when I was with you in restoration, you get excited about restoration. And then you bought a plumbing company. And I saw you get all excited about the plumbing lining uh, tool that you purchased. And you're like, this is amazing. Let me tell you what it's going to do. And you were excited about it, and people felt that. So it's also a time for people listening, TK, to think to themselves, am I excited about what I'm doing?
Yeah,
A- And one, can I get excited about it? Or two, do I just need to spend more energy, help, because you're never going to get others excited about it if you're not yourself.
totally, totally. If you're not doing what you love, and that's one thing I learned with you, Chad, is when we had you, we had you come in and consult with our company, and that was amazing because we started learning. This stuff is not an art. It's not something you have to be born with.
Right.
This is all a science. And then when you learn these principles, like what we've talked about in our book, that anyone can do, really
Right.
anyone can do, no matter how big of an introvert or extrovert or whatever your personality is, if you just follow the principles, they work. And it's just practice. That's all it is. It's literally a science. It's not an art. It's not some just total skill that you're born with. It's something you can learn, and that's what's really neat. And you can implement it right away.
Right.
That's what I love about the book, and that's what I love about what you've taught, Chad. You've done such a great job in helping people recognize that, is
Well,
bringing it down into terms that people can understand, and at you know levels that people can actually do. It's really simple. I just do these steps and then it works. And that's really neat, and that's why I'm so passionate about it too. I love to see it help so many other people.
well,
You
and,
know,
and, and TK, you're right. It's a clear framework to success. It's not, you don't have to go like, because by nature, TK, you're almost an introvert. You
yeah,
work to reach out to connect with people. You're phenomenal at connecting with people, but it's something you've had to learn. So people listening, whether you're an extrovert by nature or an introvert, it works for both of you. And
yeah. I think in ways, you too. I probably am a lot of an extrovert. I just didn't know how. So then
mm,
I couldn't really
interesting.
connect with people because I didn't know the steps. But I get energy in talking with people. I think a lot of introverts, kind of the challenge they have is they wake up and they're full of energy until they talk to people, and then they just get drained. I wake up just dead, and I have to call people. But using the skills, at least if you really focus and you practice, then you learn how to talk to people, and that's the cool thing that you've created, Chad. You know,
Well,
and
and
it goes back to the energy that you have. You were just talking about a rugby game that you had. That when you got to the game, some refs were having some bad calls, and that was changing your energy.
yeah,
Can you tell us about that?
yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. Yeah, I absolutely. The key, let me just book in real quick what you were saying there about you. I believe, TK, that you gain energy from talking with people because you understand better now how to connect with them. And
Yeah, it's a
because you
good.
and I, as we've talked about in previous episodes, we used to get frustrated when we were not having the success connecting with people. And I would be like, oh, this person just wants to talk about themselves. And I didn't understand it. And I would actually leave frustrated, discouraged, and with a decreased level of energy. Right. But now, even when someone only wants to talk about themselves, I get energized by it because I understand and get it better. And so as you think about that track and field principle, let's transition to what TK was mentioning. That second principle, that energy principle, which goes hand in hand with the track and field principle. And that is, we talk about in the book, TK, people match your energy in 3 minutes or less. They match your energy. And TK and I were talking about a story that doesn't make me look all so great, but my three youngest children play rugby, and I was we were I live in Southeast Idaho, and we were playing a team in Boise, and so we got on the old school bus and trekked 4 hours across the state to play Boise, and they had all of their best players in the whole city of Boise there to play our team from Little Rigby, Idaho, and we get there And I'm one of the coaches, and I felt at times that the ref being was favoring the hometown team.
Yeah. How
And
did you put it? Say one of the things you said.
I just said,
That's funny.
I had just mentioned under my breath that I had received, this is a lot of hometown cooking that's happening, right? And the
Hometown cook.
ref in rugby, the sir, he took exception to that, and he turned to me, and he was frustrated that I would say that, and I was like, "What? No, I was just talking about hometown cooking, and I was making a few other comments under my breath, and the other coach turned to me, TK, and he said this. He said, "Chad, you're killing us." And I was like, what am I saying? Because I didn't feel like what I was saying was that bad. And he goes, your energy is killing us. And I really stopped and thought. I was like, well, TK, you and I teach this, right? And
Yeah.
here it was. He was 100% correct. The energy that I was bringing was killing the team because although it wasn't in the words I was saying, because I was saying hometown cooking under my breath. All right, big deal. But the energy I was bringing. So you had mentioned, TK, when we were talking about this a little bit earlier, you said, so what did you change? I focused on the things that I could control, and I brought the right
Mm.
energy to it. So I was positive, I was optimistic, I was encouraging, and it brought the team up.
Yeah. And then the best part is who won?
Oh, we destroyed them. We
Yeah.
destroyed them, and it
So the
was
energy.
like not even kind of close. But the positive, but TK, managing the energy. Okay. So we have the track and field principle. It's extremely important, but managing your energy, because people will match that. And TK, we have people, owners of companies, business leaders, salespeople come to us and say, oh, these people, they're driving me crazy. They're driving me crazy. They're driving me crazy. Why? And then they describe themselves.
Yeah. The cool thing is we have the power to change the energy that's around us at the same time. So you can have conversations that I've seen where I can tell I was the one who drained it, but the person I was around, whether it was you or someone else, actually brought me up. And I've had opportunities where I felt someone else was like, man, this one's rough, where I had to really lift it. And you watch that individual or that group of people, their energy change just because of how you're being. And so the science is, like we said, the studies have been shown people match your energy within 3 minutes or less. Man, I've never even seen it take 3 minutes.
Right.
It's usually seconds, or just really quick. People can feel just by your expressions, by your tone, by your actions, how you carry yourself. It's really important to be aware. And these are, just small, simple principles that are literally science for helping you be successful in that area. I'm
And,
sure
and,
you saw it too. It's probably your body language. It was probably your
oh,
facial expressions. It wasn't just what you were saying, It could have been even how you said the hometown cooking. That could have just been funny as a joke. It was probably how you said it, how you were
yep.
standing. I
Uh-huh.
mean, you can probably express a lot of that.
Oh, that's right. And what's interesting about this energy principle, TK, is I will be having a terrible day. Okay. And it's crazy, TK, how quickly I can go to a dark place. But I think I'm not different than anyone else, right? You have
Yeah.
a few bad things happen, and my energy is just terrible, right? And I'll have my wife Cassie come out to me, and she's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm like, oh. And then you'll call me, and I'll have an hour-long conversation with you. I'll hang up the phone, and I'll be like, oh my goodness. And Cassie's like, whoa, what happened to you? What changed?
Yeah.
Well, I just matched your energy that you brought to me over the phone. And by the way, you mentioned tonality, and we'll talk about tonality in another episode, but tonality,
Yeah.
you
Finale is huge.
you completely changed. Now my energy was so different because
Yeah.
of the phone conversation that we had. And so,
Yeah.
but managing that energy is so hard to do.
Yeah. But man, you can change it so fast, if you just follow these principles. You change your posture, you change how you're looking. at someone. You change your facial expression, you change your tonality, which we'll get into. Tonality is massive, 90, if as high as 93% of our communications nonverbal. It's those small principles that are all into that science of how someone reads you. So you can lift someone up pretty quickly, even yourself, if you pay attention to those principles, no matter what you're doing.
And what's crazy about that, TK, is it's so easy. So one time, and I'm just referencing one of the many, but one time when I was on the phone to you, and I was frustrated, and so you let me share my frustration, but then you start building me up in positive comments and positive, optimistic language and all of that. And I was like, yeah. And I started really buying into it. And I was matching your energy, which is game changing. But the reality is, TK, it would have been very easy for you to say, oh, yeah, Chad, it's brutal. Life's brutal,
Yeah,
and we think we're just trying to make someone feel better by just going down and continuing to decline in their dark place with them. But then at the end of the day, I hang up the phone and I'm just like, oh, I'm never talking to TK again. That was depressing, right? Instead, I hung up the phone going, okay, I need to call him more. That was amazing, right? And it's that type, those are the types of people that other people want to be around. So if you think to
yeah,
yourself, TK, if you're listening right now and you're like, man, I just don't have enough sales, I don't have enough business, I don't have enough quality leaders, whatever it is, what type of energy are you bringing to really help the team want to be there, want to be successful? You know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
and really understanding that, hey, you're gonna have problems, you're gonna have challenges, but just step back and go, okay, I'm
totally,
gonna manage my energy.
totally, totally. I was listening to this bodybuilder that he lifted a lot when Arnold Schwarzenegger's era, um, when they were competing for Mr.
Mhm.
Olympia and all that kind of stuff. And he talks a lot about high intensity training and all that kind of stuff and what that means and how intense these guys training is. It's not very long. It's really brief. People think that a lot of these bodybuilders train for 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these guys, professional bodybuilders, they're training 2 hours a week, but
Wow.
the intensity that they train is crazy. So one of them, he was showing how intense it was and how he trains till failure. So when he does a set of squats or anything, he's training until he cannot do another rep in that set and he'll fail when he drops a set. And he said, the reason why I do that, the greatest part of that is because the only place to go after failure is up.
Mm,
And so you have to train, you have to practice, you have to fail so you can win. And so that's a principle I think that's important to follow with anything that we do, including this. We don't put ourselves out there. We don't have those conversations and things where we can put ourselves out there and change our energy by practicing to see how it goes and training. Because if you fail, that's the best part. Because the only place to go after you fail is up.
oh, I
That's pretty
love
cool.
that. I love
You know,
that. Yeah. And TK, fear of failure, and you always say that false expectations appearing real. Is that a Dan Penaism?
yeah. Dan Penny says false expectations appearing real is what fear stands for, because 95% of all that we're afraid of never happens.
Right.
You know, So we
And
get scared of all these things that we're going to be rejected, whatever it is. You might, but probably really 5% chance. Um, but even if you do, that's how you become successful. The only place to go after that is up. I thought that was really powerful for us to think about in our business, in our life. And this is that's the only place we have to go if you fail. So
well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, TK, because I think the biggest detriment or the biggest challenge of managing fear or managing energy is fear, right? Why do you not walk up to that person that you want to close that deal with the right level of energy? It's because of fear. We're afraid of what they might think, what they might say, all of those different things that travel through our minds. And
Totally.
so you're saying have the right energy, approach them the right way. And if you do fail, like most of the time, those things don't even come fast. But if you do fail, like you mentioned, the only place to go from there is up.
Yeah. It's the only way to win. It was Tom Platz who said that. The bodybuilder Tom Platz. You can look him up.
Yeah.
Amazingly successful bodybuilder. But that's how he trains. That's the only way to that's how you're successful. That's how winners fail before they win. You know. So
And you know what's interesting, TK, is I was meeting with an attorney today who was talking to him about his law firm. And he's like, Chad, what do I do next? Chad, what do I do next? And we were talking through his strategy and the implementation of messaging and so forth. And
it's cool.
he's doing exactly what we talk about in the book. He's doing exactly what I'm telling him. And he's like, oh my goodness, this works. This really works.
Yeah.
And he's like, Chad, I used to get 2 or 3 probate cases a year. I've got 30 of them right now, because he's just taking these very principles that you and I are talking about right now, the track and field principle, people matching your energy, applying them to his business. And he's like, dude, I need help. In fact, today our conversation was like, he's like, man, I'm applying everything that we teach in the book, and I have more business. Now I've got more problems, right? Because he's like, now I got more business than I know how to handle. But the reality is understanding that you will have problems. You are going to have challenges, right? TK, what's the quote from Dan Pena that you love to
Oh
share?
yeah, during growth in business, any problem you solve will be replaced immediately by a larger, more complicated problem. You know, that's
Right.
when you're growing. That's what happens, and that's how you know if you're growing is when those types of things happen. But that's really neat that's happening. That's what we love about this. You know,
Right.
when we're watching people succeed with this stuff because it's not anything special that we're doing or anything. It's literally science. When you follow these principles, you're going to have success like that. And you and I have seen that time and
Oh,
time again with the
absolutely.
financial advisors that would go visit, with the attorneys who would go and visit. These people are in front of people all the time, but didn't understand some of these principles, and then their sales just went out the roof after they just started applying a few things in each one of their meetings. That's really cool to see.
And
You
TK,
know,
it's people that understand that it applies to every business. It applies to even every element of life. I remember when you and I went out and met with a group of attorneys, and you started to build your businesses in the construction industry. So you're like, so we had seen how the messaging and communication had impacted messaging, and now we were going to meet with these attorneys. And you sat there and you go, Chad, these are all very highly educated people. I don't know. And then you sat there and listened, and you're like, wait, Chad, they have the same challenges I have in the construction and the real estate industry. I, and you realize that it all comes down to communication. It all
yeah,
comes down to how we're communicating and how we're messaging ourselves to other people. And so as we
right.
wrap up, TK, I challenge everyone that's listening to really be thinking about those two principles, the track and field principle. And do you really have the passion around it? And then that energy principle, because those two go hand in hand. Watch your energy. And TK, we've always said that if you don't believe in the energy principle, just go to the grocery store today. And as you're checking out, greet that person with that high level of energy. And
Yeah,
you'll be surprised what happens.
absolutely. Practice. Yeah, it's a great place to practice.
It's awesome.
Ways the person that's checking out at the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, TK, thanks for everything you shared. Always good to be with you.
You
Remember,
too.
people match your energy. Everyone, have a tremendous day. We'll see you later.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye now.